So I have been writing for, oh my gosh, it feels like for forever. But in the beginning, I did not know what I'm doing. And now I know very well what I'm doing. Um, so it's exciting to be able to share some of the things that I wished that I knew when I was first starting out. So I always like to give you an agenda so you know what to expect. The first thing is that writing is more than meets the eye. And I know I have a couple of my coaching clients on here with me, and I'm sure that they would agree that sometimes we think we're just going to write a book, but then when you get into it, you're like, whoa, like I'm in therapy with myself. So writing is more than meets the eye is our first little topic. And then I want to share some of my life-changing books with you. We might have some in common. Next, my journey as an author. And then I'm going to get into the 7 secrets. So I will share my secrets with you. Finally, we'll have some time for a Q&A. And then if you are ready to write your book, I will give you the opportunity to ask more questions with me offline in a private appointment. So, all right. So I was writing quotes the other day, and this is what I came up with. Writing a book is a spiritual journey. It is a spiritual journey. So whether or not you think of yourself a religious person or a spiritual person, when you write, if you are writing about what you know or who you are, if you're writing about um, something that you've learned and you make the decision to share it, it has to include the essence of you. And you will go through layers of uncovering and deciding what to uncover, how much to share, how sharing changes you. So it is definitely a spiritual journey, and you will discover who you are in ways that maybe you hadn't thought about before. You'll discover what you're made of, because you have to take some courage into this book writing journey. It really takes an effort to dare to share yourself with the world. You know, most people are quietly living their lives at home, and authors step out of the space of quietly living their lives at home. Now, some folks will write a book and maybe not really market it, but if you write a book and then you talk about it and you market it and you promote it and you do interviews and you do all of these things, you are really stepping out of yourself in a whole new way. So it is super exciting. So these are a few of my favorite books that I thought of when I thought of books that I felt really had a big impact on me. One I wrote about in my memoir, Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Beloved was another one that just, it was so beautifully written and just such a bittersweet, eerie tale. But I remember reading it and thinking it was like listening to a symphony. Khalil Gibran, The Prophet, if you've never read that, I had actually modeled my memoir around the prophet. So it's a collection of poems, you know, one will be on love, one will be on marriage, one was on children. I remember when I was in high school coming home and telling my parents, your children, not your children, they're the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And they were like, what the hell are you talking about? But so that had a big impact on me. If you haven't read The Prophet, I encourage you to check it out. Autobiography of Malcolm X was another one. I quoted The Road Less Traveled in my new book, The Anger Myth, because there was a quote there where he said, evil doesn't like to see itself, you know, and that just really struck me that when people are behaving badly or acting out badly, that they really lack that self-awareness. So, you know, I love how books help us to see other perspectives, to see things differently. How to Solve Our Human Problems is a Buddhist book from my teacher, and he really talks about anger, which informed my new book about anger. You know, so books always give us the possibility of thinking of things differently. Zora Neale Hurston, I always hear the story she died penniless, and her book is such a classic. It was the first book that my daughter read in high school in literature, which actually surprised me. And I also love the Halle Berry movie. But it's such an incredible story of a woman in the 1930s who was like feeling herself, her own agency, her own ability to make decisions about what she wanted to do in a time where that was just, it was crazy for a white woman, but especially for a Black woman to say who and where and what she wanted to do and be. So these are a few books that I really love that changed my life. But the next thing is, hey, I have books. I may not have the same audience as Malcolm X or Zora Neale Hurston, but when we become authors, we have the opportunity to write books that change people's lives. So I know that books that I've written have impacted people because they've shared that with me. I also know that I've impacted people that I don't even know about, right? And then your book could be that one right there in the middle where you write something that impacts someone and becomes someone else's life-changing book. So I want to tell you my author's journey a little bit. This poor cover from my very first novel, Chocolate Souffle, I painstakingly designed it, had no idea what I was doing. I remember my friend looked at this and she said, Trish, what is that on the cover? Is that a bran muffin? And I was like, oh man, I have no idea. So when I first wrote Chocolate Souffle, I was like 1995. I think this is my first bullet here. I worked on getting that manuscript out. In my head, I feel like I submitted it 100 times. I don't know if my memory just multiplied it or something, but I had sent out a lot of submissions and I only had one publisher read it. And they said, oh, basically it was nice. It was a page turner, but it wasn't for them at the time. And that was it. Back in those days, we couldn't just publish our own books. So I just kind of let it alone. Now, it wasn't until 2016 I met a woman who said, oh, I can help you. I'm a publisher. Back then, I didn't really realize how all that works, where anybody can just call themselves a publisher and put a book on Amazon. So she kind of helped me with it. It ended up where we parted ways because if you work with me, I'm a real stickler for detail. And I ended up taking the project from her and finishing it off myself. But when I show you the cover, it still shows how little I knew about how important a book cover is. So I wanted to put a flower from my mom. I wanted to put the chocolate souffle that looks like a bran muffin. But basically, this book is a very kind of, it's a spicy romantic drama. Like it should have a spicy cover. And one of these days when I come back to work on it, I'll probably work on the cover because the cover is the first thing that people see when they're making the decision, to purchase your book. So 4 years later, during the pandemic, I wrote Thinking Outside the Chrysalis, A Black Woman's Guide to Spreading Her Wings. It was originally supposed to be a book for a retreat that I was putting together, but of course everything fell apart in 2020, so that didn't happen. But people really loved the book. And I started writing for Natural Awakenings magazine in Atlanta in 2020. So this was kind of me branching out into this writer world that I always wanted to be in, but was always scared to step into. So by the next year, I published, actually wrote 2 books in 2020, but I kind of didn't know what I was doing either. So I started working with this company and they gave me some help. And so then I published a second edition of 12 Steps to Mind-Blowing Happiness. I got all these amazing endorsements from Iyanla Vanzant and Jack Canfield and Marcy Shimoff. And from there, they actually hired me. So the company that I was hiring to help me, they hired me to start coaching their folks as well. And things kept happening. The next thing was I got a literary agent that same year, so that was exciting. And then 2022, I signed a book deal with a traditional publisher, and I also signed with a speaking agent. And finally this year, oh gosh, what is it now? Is it 2 weeks? Today's Thursday. It's a week and a half ago. My latest book came out called The Anger Myth. And of course, in the process, I lost my younger sister. So I am dedicating all of my work around that book to my late sister, Chrissy. So that was a mouthful. That's what I've been up to. Let's get into the secrets. So, all the things I didn't know when I started. So, secret number one is to know who your reader is. Most clients who come to me writing a book, they say, oh, it's a great book for everyone. It's for everyone. Everybody can get something out of this book, which is true. Everyone can get something out of the book. But the thing is, people won't usually get your book if they don't think it's for them. Like, even if you think of like ladies' deodorant, like for a long time during my life, I would purchase ladies' deodorant or I would buy a ladies' razor. This is not, I'm sure it's not much different than, the male version of it, but it was for me. Maybe it was pink and it had daisies or it was whatever, and it was for me. Or I'm actually working with another client on government contracts, she's writing a book on government contracts. And it's like, if I were looking for a book on government contracts and it said it was for Black women, then I would really want that book, as opposed to if it was just a book on how to get government contracts for everybody. So it doesn't always work that you niche down super, super small, but many times it really does. You figure this just in the US market alone, there's 300 million people. You don't need 300 million people to buy your book. If you got 100,000 people to buy your book, that would be a really good showing. So niching down typically works really, really well. So that's the first secret. Find out who your reader is. So the next secret of successful authors is using metadata in your title. And I use this book as an example, Atomic Habits. So the important word in his title is habits. So metadata is just keywords. So like if I'm looking for a book on habits and the title is Atomic Habits, there's only 2 words in the title. It should pop up right away. So just when you put your title together, don't do like what I did with chocolate souffle. Because if people are looking for chocolate or they're looking for souffles, they'll find my book, right? But my book was not about that at all. So I could have titled it something that would have helped readers, help my audience to find it. And secret number 3, create a freebie. When your readers go to purchase your book, unless you set them up on your website, which I have no desire to do. I know some people will buy books and keep them in their house and let people buy from them and mail them out. For me, that sounds like just everything that I don't like about life. I don't want to do any of that. So for most of us who are selling books on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or other websites, maybe direct from our publishers, we're never going to know who's buying our books. There's no way for us to know who's buying our books on Amazon. So you want to have some way to connect with your reader. And you can give away maybe a little ebook, maybe a little checklist. This example is showing from my website, the main page, there's a self-care ebook. So just something that you can give your reader so that you can get their email address and stay in touch with them. Because you might want to let them know when your next book is coming out or when you're having an event. Or if your book's not out yet, you may want to let them know when you're having your book launch event. So you definitely want to start collecting email addresses so you can start building your audience and having a way to connect with them. And even when we look at things like social media, social media, you really don't know who those people are either. Like if you were to lose your platform, then you would lose all those contacts. And I've seen people deplatformed before. So having email addresses, nobody can take those from you. And you can also ask for phone numbers as well. So secret number 4, make sure your table of contents has a narrative. Just realizing my phone's behind me. I need to check the time. Okay. Make sure your table of contents has a narrative arc. So when somebody is going to find your book, you want them to hopefully use that keyword, get to your title. They're going to like your title. You're going to have some sort of book description, and that's going to entice them and make sense. And then they're going to open up the table of contents. And if they open it up and it looks like they can't understand anything that's happening in there, they may lose interest, right? So you want to make sure that your table of contents shows a narrative arc. So what's a narrative arc? It means you have a story that starts from here, goes through some sort of high point, and then has a conclusion on the other side. So this is the table of contents from my newest book. And it starts with what you might find, I think, pretty common in books. I like this kind of journey where it starts with kind of the problem, the solution, and then the path forward, right? So in my case, it's the myth, then it's my 5-step solution, and then the side effects, the blissful side effects, right? The path forward. All right, secret number 5, remember your author's bio is not your resume. It's not the same. So you're not going to put, necessarily every school you attended or every degree or certification that you have. It's not your LinkedIn profile. You only want to tell the reader what is relevant to the book that you're writing. What is relevant to the book that you're writing? Now, you do typically want to have something in here that's a little humanizing. People generally think that authors are like, a level above them or different from them. So you want to make sure to bring it back down and just let them know your person. Mine says, when I'm not coaching, writing, speaking, or leading retreats, you can find me on the hiking trail, at the beach, in the yoga studio, curled up on the sofa with my dog Cooper, which is basically what I do, right? It's also an opportunity to let your reader connect with you. So this says, if you want to find out more, you can contact her, and it has my business information and email address. So you can also share information like that so that your reader can contact you if they want to. Okay, secret number 6. Pay attention to structure and themes. So you want your reader to feel like you put something together for them intentionally, not haphazardly. You don't want your book to seem like, oh, you didn't spend any time thinking about it, you just threw it together. And themes and structure is a really nice way to show that you spent time on your work. I use Eat, Pray, Love as an example because, we all know she was eating in Italy, she was praying in India, and she was loving in Indonesia, right? So when you look at the cover, you see that the eat is pasta and the pray is this mala, and, the Bali love is a flower. So it's just very intentional. She's intentional inside her book as well. When she does the structure of her book, she talks about 108 beads on a mandala, and so she tells her story in 108 stories. So it's all this beautiful attention to detail that draws the reader into the book more than just, eat, pray, love, and it's just going to be the 3 words, and it's just going to be, 10 chapters. You know what I mean? Like there was a lot of intention in the way that she structured her book. And of course, she had huge success with the book and with the film. Secret number 7. I remember when I first learned this, I was like, what do you mean I need something to sell besides a book? But you really do want to have something to sell besides your book. So your book will introduce the readers to you. You have something to say. And, you don't have to do this, but suppose your reader wants more, are you willing to maybe do some workshops? Or, do some conferences or speaking gigs? Would you do maybe some coaching or consulting on the topic that you're writing about? So I love this example. Rachel Rogers, I use her example a lot. I actually profiled her in my book, The Anger Myth, along with some other entrepreneurs. But in her book, her whole thing is we should all be millionaires. We should all be making more money, particularly women and marginalized people. And she offers at the end of her book for you to join her club. So She's got lots of other things as well, but she's a great example of having something beyond the book itself to offer your audience. And that's it. So where can you find my work? I like to think I'm everywhere. So if you haven't taken the anger quiz, you can take that. That's a lot of fun. My new book is out. I hope you all will purchase and write your Amazon reviews. I have an article this month in Natural Awakenings magazine, and I'll have more coming out in the June issue. But yeah, you can find me pretty much everywhere. And we have time for questions. If anyone has questions. And let me go to this last slide. So if you are not already a coaching client of mine and you are thinking about getting some help to write your book, you can schedule a 15-minute, I call them building your book bones consultations, and we can talk. I offer a 2-week package. I also offer longer packages. Now I'm offering ghostwriting services. But let's have a conversation. For anyone who schedules by next week a consult and decides to do the 2-week package, then I've got some freebies for you, including my book, the guided meditation, and access to the virtual wellness retreat. So I will put the link in the notes for the video. And if anybody wants to schedule that, you can do that. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed that. So let me stop sharing. And I'm going to stop the recording.